want your guys' input. This really isn't just supposed to be me doing these lessons because I could just record these on Camtasia. So we downloaded, we paid our $5, and we got this shipping container. Now, the first thing that I would tell you that I noticed is I brought that, the thing you purchased was a family, and I dropped that into a project. So if we picked on it, we would see that it's this family, which first thing that I hate is it's got this ugly name. We don't put pluses, we don't put minuses, we don't put parentheses. We don't put ugly syntax in the name of our object. Okay. Now, because this is a specialty equipment, it's not necessarily going to appear real great in the plan view. Let's see how it actually looks in the plan view. Let's see. It looks like that under coarse mode, and under fine mode, it looks exactly the same. Okay, so in plan view, it looks a little bit beginnerish, if you're asking me. Okay, if I go back to that 3D view, like I said, was saying to you, from a distance, this family looks half decent. But if you know anything about shipping containers, the first thing you're going to notice is, see these slots that are in here? These slots are supposed to also be on the top face. That's how they connect the two containers with it together. And though they were nice and they drew some forklift holes in there, all this information is just a little bit fudged, because if you look at the forklift holes at the end, you wouldn't be able to go through there because you'd be hitting that webbing. And I can sort of show that by doing this, cutting this section box back to about there. You could see it'd be a little bit bad for your forklift hole to go through. Number two, that sort of like almost like some people would call it metal decking. This waffle pattern that's on the side.
Corrugated.
Go ahead.
Corrugated?
Yeah, corrugated. Thank you for giving me the term. This corrugated metal is only like a 1/4 inch thick, which gives us a perfect opportunity for me to remind everybody, we don't ever draw anything thinner than a 1/4 inch, because in less than a 1/4 inch in Revit, from certain zoom lengths, it will disappear and be see-through. So, but what this should happen is this corrugated metal should actually follow this shape. Now, when you look at this, what ends up happening is you'll notice they got corrugation at the end down here, and they got corrugation at the end down here. Well, that's not how a shipping container comes. One end would have the doors, and if you did a little bit of research, you would find the corrugation pattern on the sides is not the same as what's on the ends. More importantly, it definitely does not occur on the top and the bottom. Okay. So the bottom of a shipping container actually is sort of framed with almost some unistruts and stuff like that, and then has plywood on top of it. So the floor is not drawn right, the two ends aren't drawn right, and the roof that has a whole different pattern. And more importantly, if you're ever going to design with a shipping container, you would find that has something. If I said the term camber, do you know what camber means? Anybody?
No. What is it?
Camber.
Yeah, well, you see these cars going down the road sometimes, and their tires are cambered.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're not
with a structural member. What they'll sometimes do, and you can really tell this like on a flatbed semi truck, when it's unloaded, it has this arc in it. right?
Mhm.
And then when they load it down, then it flattens out. So if we put camber in a beam, what we do is we put a little bit of a curve in that beam, and then when they put the concrete floor on there and all the furniture and everything else, that weight will actually cause the floor to go down to flat. Does that make sense? Well, the top of a shipping container has camber, okay, because it is not structural. Because what they do is they stack these things. Oh, they stack these things on these points right here, and the roof can take no load whatsoever. So everybody who talked about, because I think everyone who ever finds out I want to build with a shipping container, they're like, you should bury that thing in the ground. You should bury that thing in the ground. Your walls will take most of the load, but when you start putting any soil up on that roof, that thing's going to collapse. You would have to pour a concrete roof on it first, maybe putting some reinforcement in it. Then you might be able to get away with it. So anyway, back to our $4.99 family that we downloaded. I've given you a lot of the bad to it, but I'd like to show you some of the sort of neat things to it. So some of the neat things that they did was, if I edit the type, they put type properties in here that are sort of cool. Okay. So when I edit this type, you'll see that I have the ability to say, oh, there's a door and a window on the ends. And when I hit this checkbox, unfortunately, they should have written an if-then statement to say, well, if you got doors and windows on the ends, then you don't have a wall on the end. And what would happen then is you would see that it added a window to the one end and a door to the other end. Okay? That's a pretty neat little trick that they did there. Oh, let me pick him again. That's a visibility controller. Okay? But what I worry about is this length. They've put all of these parameters in here, but they're grayed out. See how they're grayed out and I can't fill them in? So this is not a parametric container. So I'd like to change this to a 40-foot container. Does anyone know? I would hope that Eric, Misty, maybe even Mike would know. How did they get this stuff to be grayed out in the family? Because if you put it in there as a parameter, it's going to normally allow you to adjust it. Well, this is
I think
where
it's going to one of those lookup tables.
it might. That might be a good way. I'll be honest with you. I can't even answer because I haven't looked at it that much. I'm going to go into the actual family.
They could have just locked the dimensions.
That could be. That could be. But you see, these guys are a little bit sophisticated. You go into the thumbnail. When you open up, you go into the thumbnail and you say, okay, I'd like to orbit this. Well, it won't let you orbit it. So I actually made a 3D view, and that would let me orbit it. Okay. Now, so that shows me that these family builders were a little bit sophisticated. Another thing they did was that thing that I showed you with the on and off. And when you do that in a family, typically your family's going to be preview visibility off. So it's like, okay, what is going on? And what's going on is this is where they have the walls and the doors turned on with one turn on switch, which we're going to go into. Let me grab that box and bring it over here. All right. So this is how they lock that stuff. See, they did not put the thickness or the length of the box in a parameter. They said equal to out here, and that keeps anyone from adjusting this. Now, there are certain people who will do that kind of thing for the identity data for this description, which we'll quite often use. In other words, you might want a piece of text in here that says this is a shipping container. If I put it here, when you put it in your projects, Mike could change it. But if I put it here, it's almost like someone with Mike's capabilities says, oh shit, I can't change that.
It's grayed out.
Right. And if it doesn't take it with this, right, it's giving me some kind of error message. Let's see, I couldn't read it. And what it's saying is, I think you need to put quote or double quotes around this if it's a text value. Okay. So that makes it grayed out. Me personally, that makes it so that that family's not very friendly.
Yep.
Okay. So now if this was a good family, one that I would like to provide from Rogue, I don't think you have to be able to change every one of these frame thicknesses and all ceiling thicknesses. But this length of this box, they make 20 footers and they make 40 footers. I'd like to be able to type in a 40 footer, but I'm betting that things are going to go real bad when I do. Oh, look, it's doing a bunch of math. Now, if we took that visibility off, we would find, let's see, take that preview visibility, turn that back on. We would find that the waffle pattern sort of did some crazy things when it stretched that. They did not make it parametric. These extrusions for the holes and the slots. See, I no longer have the little hole out here. I don't have the forklift slot. So the family is not very parametric. So from a distance, the family was probably worth $5 if you just had to throw one of these in your background. But this is not going to work for designing using a shipping container. Now, my first classes on families is going to be related to making this shipping container parametric. And more importantly, I don't want the doors and the windows in here. Mike, Eric, you want to tell me why I don't want the doors and the windows in the family?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
Because I want to be able to design each shipping container a little bit different. My kitchen shipping container is going to have more windows, more openings. My bedroom ones are going to have windows in different locations. This is just sort of like to throw a shipping container at the back of your site. That's what you're getting. You probably overpaid at $5. More importantly, it was a little bit frustrating in how you downloaded it and how it was named. And what I mean by that is this is where I'm trying to tell you, Tyler, that what I want people to do is when they go to our website and they say we want to get some families, I want them to be able to go straight over to a Google Drive, have all of our stuff organized there, and be able to download all of our families with a matter of just a couple clicks. I don't see the downfall to that. Do you know if there's a downfall? In other words, if I pay for the Google Drive space, does it matter if 1 million people download it?
Not necessarily. The only part where it kind of got weird with your idea to me was when you wanted anybody to be able to upload, because I don't believe Google Drive is going to have any cybersecurity to it. So if somebody decides to put a virus in there or anything like of that nature, anybody could accidentally grab it.
Well,
So
I would think that we could run a scan on a folder, and don't get me wrong, they won't be able to upload to all of the folder locations. But I
Right.
would like one common location because I know, and Mike will attest to this, that it can be real frustrating when Mike's got a file and he needs to get it to me, and it's like, how can I get it to you? It's too big to email.
Right.
And we run into that all the time in Revit. We are
Yeah,
constantly.
I understand that entirely, and that's why I do like the file share idea. But definitely do a login system. Definitely have some form of security on it that scans it as it's being put in, not necessarily after it's uploaded.
Okay. Okay. I will tell you that I tried to write you a comment. I tried to get to the comments on the website, and I wanted to leave you a comment, and it wouldn't even let me leave a comment without logging in. That I don't like. I don't like to constantly have to have logins for shit. So we're gonna butt heads a little bit.
Well, that's not. That was all rough draft. Threw it together, kind of just to have something to work with, so we can get ideas like that. For example, if you
Yes,
want just a guest function where if nobody's logged in, they can still do things, and it just says random user, that's fine.
I'll be honest with you. I am a firm believer in staying a guest and not having to get a username and a password in order for me to download one or two of your families that I need. To me, most time,
Download, sure. Upload, mm,
yeah, I'm with you. I can make that compromise. I can make that compromise.
yeah.
So you guys see what I'm talking about, how this shipping container worked. Tyler's going to send everybody here. So catch Nathan as well. Nathan, do you have the software?
No, sir. Not as of right now.
And what does your schedule look like? What is your like? See, the thing about Revit is you get 30-day free trial. So,
As of right now, my schedule is pretty free. I have decent free time
well,
after work.
if you think you want to dedicate some time, my recommendation would be go to Autodesk's website. It's not hard to find. Type in Revit, and you're going to see a trial download. And you can then use it for 30 days. So that means if you join with us for the next month and you do some drawing, you should be able to learn enough of this software that you can at least start to make money to pay for the cost of the software. So, and I'm assuming that you've got a decent computer, is what Tyler was telling me, a gaming computer.
Yeah, yes, sir, I do.
So,
It's a machine.
well, that being the case, Tyler, I don't want to talk much more about the shipping container. I'd like you guys to, and if it doesn't apply to you, Mikey, or some Eric, don't do this. But I'd like to see you at least play with it a little bit so that when I show you the ideas of how I actually am going to build this shipping container, you sit there and say, damn, that's genius. I didn't think of that. Okay. I'd rather you not just wait me show you, because if you don't do it the wrong way first, it's really hard to learn when you just get shown one way to do it. And I'll be honest, I would hope that with the three of you guys, and that's what's different about this kind of concept is, my goal is to really hopefully get to a point where for the whole meeting, I'm not the one talking. It's sort of a little bit Misty and a little bit Mikey and a little bit Eric and a little bit me. I think the important concept is not to have just one person doing the teaching, us teaching each other. I promise you, there's things that Eric knows that I've never thought about, and there's things that Mike knows that I never thought about. Okay, so the other class thing that I wanted to do, and you can see where we're coming from with how I'm trying to do this, Tyler, is I'm trying to break this up into a couple segments that we could theoretically go back and edit and clip out and say, this is a lesson about this, and this is a lesson about that. What I wanted to talk last about was, let's see, let me close some of this stuff. So it's these property lines. When we went over massing and site, that was one of those things that I said we'd get back to. And it just so happens that I have a need to do this. So I'm going to start right from scratch. If you have your Revit open, please, it's best if you try to follow along with this step, because my theory is then if you get jammed up and say, Brian, wait, how did you do that? Mine's not doing that. Then we can flip to your screen and we can look at it on your screen, because the best lessons I'm going to be able to give someone out in the field are not with me talking and me drawing. It's going to be with me talking and someone else drawing, or Eric talking and me drawing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But we're gonna, we're just sort of breaking into this. But I'm going to start from a brand new file, new project. And I think I've always told you that I almost always start with an architectural template, unless I'm doing a mechanical or a structural or an electrical job. And if it's an electrical and you don't see the electrical listed here, you hit this browse button and then you would see it. Okay, but I'm going to go with an architectural template. These property lines and these topos, most people never have a clue about them. They like, I know, I'll come up here and I'll draw a model line. Or they'll go to annotate and they'll draw a detail line, because Mikey says, Brian said, never draw model lines, go draw a detail line. But a property line is a very special and sort of cool little tool. And ironically, that's what I'm hoping that we're really going to be getting fired up on, is learning that P&ID the same kind of way. It wasn't until recently that I figured out how these property lines work. So the first thing that I would say is I would go into the site view, because it's going to have a little bit more realistic scale. And then I would have you ever seen a plat? Has everyone seen a plat? Something with property lines on it? Are you familiar with what I mean when I say property lines?
Similar like lot lines?
Like lot lines, correct. Like this.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm going to start with one of the easier ones. Let's see, is there any easy one? Yes, this very first corner one is a nice, easy one. So, since I've just drug an image into Revit, does anybody remember the first thing that I need to do once I drag that image into Revit?
Scale it.
Scale it. Thank you. It's one of the reasons that it's real nice to have these graphic scales. Is all you have to do is, you can see that here's 0, here's 300. You could click here and say that this is 300 foot, but you always want to use the longest length that you have possible. So if you go to scale, and then I'm going to click right here on the 0, and then right here on the 600, and you'll see it was saying 92 foot 4. Oh, wait. What did it do? Try that one more time. Oh, I know why it did it. Because I was still in the very first paste. You've got to put the image in. Then you got to pick on the image. What in the world? Let's try it one more time. So we're going to take the image that I took a picture of in my phone, and we're going to drop this in. We're going to click once in white space to accept, because it's in this copy paste mode when you do that. Then you pick on it. And then you come in here and you say scale. You click here. You click here. You go in a direction a little bit more and you type in 600 feet. Now our thing is in scale. If you're worried and you want to double check it, I could just go annotate, draw a detail line. You'd see when I stretch that out, it says 592, 596. I'm a little bit out of scale, but that's the beauty of what we're trying to do with this property line. with this property line, what we're going to do is read these numbers right here. This south 82 feet. Yep, south. Okay, so this is the distance, 1,499 square feet, 1,499.87 feet at 820515. So if you were to go to the massing and the site and you were to go to property lines, this little window comes up. We could say create this by sketching, and we could try now tracing over it, but it wouldn't be real accurate. The best way to put this in is say create by entering the distances. Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. Actually, to be honest with you, this should be the one you're coming from, because this actually says the beginning of the survey for this whole mountain. So I'm going to type in 1499.47, 1499.47, and then I'm going to go south 82. So we change this to say south. We say 82, 06, and 19. 19, and then we say east. Okay, so that would be drawing from right here to over here. To over here. So then your next one, you just say insert another line, and my next one is going to be this 599.18. 599.18. It's going to be south 035 11. Okay, so you should be saying, well, that's pretty much user friendly. Anyone should be able to figure that out. You'll see that this one is not east but west. And what happens with your next one is the one that will mess you up. So I insert another one. And I'm actually going to do it wrong the first time. 1499.87. And I'm going to say south 82 05 and 15. And that is southeast. Now, if at any time I say, okay, it's going to put the lines in. And what we're going to find is these lines. Do you see how these lines, the first two lines are pretty good? But you see the third one, how it's going in the wrong direction? What we do is we say edit the table for that line. When you're coming back, you're not going southeast. You're actually going the opposite. You change both of these. You're going northwest. And the idea is the way that line was actually drawn, it was drawn from here to here. Well, the way Revit needs it is going from here to there. In order to do that, all you do is change it from southeast to northwest.
Now, what happens when you put a tag on that right there? Will it put the southeast on there or no?
Absolutely going to show that. You're one step at you're no, you're not. Don't be sorry. You're absolutely right on the money. So we're going to do it. I'm just going to insert these couple other ones, and then I'm going to show you the tags, and then you won't be so scared of a damn property line. More importantly, if someone needed to do a property line, if my buddy Tyler's done his job, we're going to shoot to the top of the world with a property line description, because you're going to have a hard time finding someone show you how to do this stuff. Okay? Let's see, 5026. And that one's northeast. And that does look right, making that go northeast. We insert one more. 454.16. 032. 32.56. And we say, okay. And we've pretty much drawn that shape. Okay. Now, when you're drawing, you see how that will sort of get lost on the screen when I go like that? It's like, okay, where's that? Keep in mind that if we want to do something to property lines just on this view, we type in VB. We get this dialog box. We could come down here to site, and we'll find property lines are in there. And see, this is a nice way to, in your view that you're going to do your work on, you might make that yellow, and you might make it not that one, but this one nice and heavy.
10.
Right? I think it would help if you had line weights. No, not line weights. If it's not line weights, anybody want to tell me what it is? It's usually the scale. We're probably thinking more like maybe 100. And now I can start to see the line weights. Okay? See, because you can't change the color of the image, and the image had the black lines on there. And I think you'd find that when I was working on it with a site file, and the yellow really popped off nice against the satellite image. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So Mike had a very valid question. If we have to put all that shit in, can we get that shit out? Because that's the most important thing about Revit is if we put that data in, it's important how we can get that data back out so it didn't just get wasted. So what we do is you would go File, New, and you would say an annotation symbol. I mean, don't get me wrong. You could look in their annotations, and I always use generic annotation. You could look in their library and try to find one. But what I typically do is I make a brand new one. I come up here in order to get that the correct family. See, what happens is you'll see that if I see family types, none of the if I create a label and put that label in there, let me go get that on the other window. You're going to see for a generic annotation, there's not very much in there. Okay. However, if we change this to a property line, what we can then do is say, create that label. And what we'll find is now we'll have all the things related to a property line. So we can pull out its bearing that Mike was asking about. And we could pull out, maybe put a line break in there. Can't put a line break till you get the second one. And what would this second one be called? It's either distance or length. There you go, distance. See, now I can put that break, go like this, and it's going to put in the bearing and the distance. If we load this into our project, which would be this one here that we're playing with, you have to go to the site file. You would see, sure enough. Now, good with the angle. You could go in there and say on the bearing, nope, edit label. I think you can put the north to red. There you go. You could say right before bearing, we'll put the east-west after bearing. That'll be where the break is. and we'll put the north-south at the very top. Right? When we load that into the project.
Need a break, don't you? Or no?
I don't think so.
You're right. You're right.
See, just put that north 820515 west. Now, for the bottom one, for the distance, if I edited that label and I picked the distance right here, you'll notice that I can come down here and pick this little guy here. And that would allow me to change and say, don't use the project settings for this one, do it in decimal feet and go 2 places. Now, instead of having that fraction, inches, what we're going to actually have 49 or 1499.87 feet. The feet got dropped. If I went back to this guy and said edit the label, selected the distance, and came down here, you would see that you could put the foot mark. Or you could put feet, either one. Now, when I load it back into the project, and I need you to be that friendly with making those tags. Once we learn how to make the tag, you're going to find that we're going to use that for so many things. So what I would then do when that tag is actually working, I would come down here to families, and I would go to my annotations, and I'm going to find this guy named Family 1, and I would actually name that property line tag. Okay. Now, the reason I renamed that is I'm going to go right back into that tag that I was just doing and say, oh, know what? Now I want to make this into a property tag instead of a property line tag. Watch what happens to the field that we placed. I thought it would blow away. But you see how it's changed all this to type IFC guides? See, because a property doesn't have all those bearings in it. Only the property line does. So what I can do here is I could remove all of those. I could add just the area. And I could say, since I already know better, I don't want this in square feet. I want this to be measured in acres to 2 decimal places. So what's now going to happen, if I push this guy in, because I renamed the Family 1 that was already in there, you're going to see this guy. The first tag it tries to place is the property line tag. And if you do a tab, you're going to see it put in the acreage. And you're going to see they were pretty doggone close in the acreage that they figured out by hand. That makes sense? And obviously, out here, you might end up saying, well, I'd like it to say acres, so we pick this, we pick this. We say the unit symbol is going to be acres. Now, when we load this into our project, we have a working tag. You'll notice these guys have leaders on. That's all done right here in this section right here. We would take that leader off of that object. We might also adjust the scale. Let's see, where were we at? 1 to 100, maybe 1 to 50. Nope, other way. 1 to 200. And actually, you would find, if I remember correctly, this thing said 1 to 300 was what the drawing was. So this should be pretty close to looking like their text, their stuff. The finer parts of these tags, see, if I now pick this guy and say edit the family, what I could do is I could say that tag I want to rotate with the object. And then you'll see this thing, instead of being at that slight angle, is now like that. We turn the leader off. We put him down here and we say create similar, and we could tag all of these guys. Take this leader off before you put them on. And you could now bing, bing, bing. And there's even one right there. See, there was another little piece of property line right there. Any questions? No? All right. So another thing that we need to do, and Tyler, this was one I said I'd be willing. Don't get me wrong, Ginger, if you'd like to do it, it's just in the beginning, forever in Revit, there's going to be some tasks that you really just have to do a lot of repetitive work. Right, Mikey? Sometimes you just have to click, click, click and waste a lot of time. So I'm going to make another site view. I'm just going to duplicate this thing, and not with the details. That's going to basically just leave my property line will be the only thing showing. And I'm going to look at my blue beam. What is my blue beam? There's my blue beam icon. So I was able to find a PDF of contour lines. Okay. And you'll sort of have to learn how to do this, but one of the first things you're going to say, well, how can I put that PDF into your Revit? And you actually, somewhere around 2022, somewhere maybe even 2020, you could actually bring in PDFs. I don't recommend you do that. When I'm going to try to trace over something, it's just like I did with the property lines. I need to turn that into an image. Anyone have any good ideas on how to turn a PDF into an image? You would find you could file, print, do an export to an image probably from Bluebeam. Yep, right there. I can export it to a JPEG. I'll be honest with you. I do things over and over the same way that I've had good success at. And what I would probably do with this guy is I would probably take 2 snippets. So I would use the snipping tool, right? And then with that snipping tool,
Bluebeam has a snipping tool.
yeah, I believe it. I believe it. And you might be able to do it with the Bluebeam, but my typical way of doing this is, if I pull this PDF, I'm going to take this over to my big 4K monitor where things are real big, and I'm just going to take 2 quick pictures of it from my screen, and then I'm going to show you how that comes in. So you can't actually see this because I'm sharing a small screen. So just bear with me. I'm going to grab these 2 pictures. Going to go down to 529. All right. And we're going to save that into my, yep. So we're going to call this Topo 1. Let me take one more picture. Bear with me. And say new. Now, the reason that I don't like to mess around too much with trying different ways to get these JPEGs is because you could make JPEGs extremely large and then they just crush your file. Okay, that's why I don't. And I probably could refine my process a little bit. But my thinking is, I have a process that's worked pretty good for me. That's what I want to show you. So now I go find those 2 images, which are like right here. And I made these 2 images. You'll see that's how I made my satellite images. I will take those same snips of Google Maps for my vicinity map for my drawing, but I just made this Topo 1 and Topo 2, which when I drop them in, 1 and this one, Topo 2. Now what I'm going to find is I can take both of those guys and scale them at the same time. And from what I told you earlier, I would probably go from here to 1,000. The longest distance you can find is going to give you the greatest accuracy. 1,000 feet. All right. Which means that now, if I find my piece of land, and this is where I'm going to give you the file, Tyler, and let you do some tracing because it's just a repetitive thing. It'll get you some clicks and make you a little bit of money if you don't mind doing it for me. If you can't do it on a relatively timely basis, I'll be glad to do it on my own. Now, all I got to do is get that 29 at the same spot because I've got the two different ones. And this is ready for me to trace over using Topo. So my thought process was, I'm going to real quick show you how I would do a topography. Now, sometimes we get contour lines in AutoCAD. The problem with using those is they don't have uniform distances between the points on the line. Sometimes if it's a real curvy line, it'll have a lot of points. And sometimes if it's a really straight line, it'll only have a point at the beginning and the end. That completely confuses Revit. And if you say that's not right, it's unfair, Revit should work better than that, it doesn't matter. It's not going to help you out. You have to do, and I think I sort of put this in the email, you sort of have to do a little bit the way Revit wants it. And if you don't fight Revit, it's actually not a terrible job. So the biggest mistake that you'll make, and what I'm going to do is sort of get myself a baseline contour. You know, it looks like most of this stuff, let's just say somewhere around 5,800. We're going to always be able to change this stuff, but I'm going to say that I'm going to build a topo and I'm going to put it in at 5,800. And right out of the gate, I'm going to get extremely frustrated. And this is why most people don't even go any further with the topo. So let's see if that holds true. So we go to massing and site and we go to topo surface and we're going to put in a point. What people do that make a mistake is they start tracing in here. What you really want to do is you want to get your 4 outer points, your 4 corners defined first. So I told you right here, we're somewhere around 5,800 feet, 5,000, because after all, it is the Rocky Mountains. So it's way up there. When I do that, what's going to happen is it's probably going to give me a warning. Did it give me a warning? No. And I'm going to click these 4 outside points. Now, it didn't give me a warning, but it should be showing me points. If I finish this, what's going to happen is if I go to a 3D view, there's this topography, and it's way up there, but in my site copy, I'm not seeing it. And the reason is because the cut plane. See, this only goes up to 200 feet. I need this cut plane to be higher than that. So I'm going to set that to maybe 7,000 feet. And I'm going to make the top of my job maybe like 10,000 feet. Now you'll notice that my topography showed up and is overlapping that. Now, this is one of the spots where in this view where we're doing this tracing, it's beneficial if you go down with your VV to topography and make it transparent right here. Transparency. Because then what will happen is when you complete it, you'll be able to see through it a little bit. Okay, and okay. Right? So now I can go back into it and I can say edit. All right. Now, what I would need to do and how I'm going to actually build this is now I go find where my piece of land is. Because I don't need to build all of this. And
So
right here is Broken Smoke Trail. And nicely enough, right in here, this is the quadrant that a person would typically build. So in other words, if you were doing the average job, you don't need to do everything around here. My problem is I want to understand my views of the other mountains. So I'm going to try to build probably about that much of these contours, which we'll see these are the high ridges of the mountains, which is how I would really go about building this. So you see this 7,800? I would come in here and I would place a point at 7,800. And now I'm just going to do a uniform clicking around that contour. Just bear with me, because see, this is the step that I want you to go try to do. Now we are not going to build all of these contours. We're going to build the high ones, we're going to build the low ones, and then we're going to see how our contours match. All right. So when I finish that, you'll notice I get this grid, and then out here I'm getting all of these contour lines. So what happens is, remember that cut plane that I drew? That cut plane was not high enough. I only went to 7,000 and I just drew these at 7,800. So that means that I need this cut plane to probably be 9,000 feet, which is then going to give us that first set of contours. That makes sense? And then this is where people get really frustrated. I'm going to go try to do the 7,400 level. So if we edit the surface and we did a 7,400, you're going to see as I start clicking on the 7,400, I'm going to try to keep that same spacing. Went this way. All right. Now, go ahead and finish out. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss why that looks so terrible and how to fix that. And that'll pretty much put us at a decent wrap point for tonight. All right. Remember, this USGS thing, this is for like an entire mountain. Well, the average person only needs to deal with a couple feet of change. They're not dealing with 200 feet of change. So what's happening is they're showing, we said this was 7,400, 300, 200.
no, not quite.
7,000, and then they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every 50 feet. So what we need to do is we need to set those contours that we're not showing every 2 feet, we're showing every 50 feet. Anyone know where to set that? I believe it's this little arrow right here, and I'm guessing. There it is. See what we've got right here is we've got an increment every 50 feet. And these are our major contours where typically you do every 10 feet. We want that to be every 200 feet. And all of a sudden, this thing should almost be ready to trace out. See, so now you can start to see I was trying to do that 7,400. If I went in here and said place a point, we picked this height. All I need to do is sort of go all the way around this guy at about the same distance. That's the touchy thing. Now, if you notice, it's leaking a little bit. Okay? It's not putting all of the points in. What you want to do is you want to grab one of the high lines and then come back and do one of the low lines. I see I missed a point there. And this is what this absolutely drives people bonkers and hating the software because they either zoom in too much and don't get this thing uniform. But you'll see once I put my low one in, then it'll start to make a little more sense. So we're 7.4 is all the way up here, comes all the way down there. Yep, that's the one.
Can you actually turn off the topo to make it easier so you don't get confused and you just follow the dots and just put dots everywhere?
Well, what happens is then you won't see what your contour lines are doing.
Okay,
You won't see the leaks where a contour line should really be a round curved line. It shouldn't be any sharp edges because that's when your land looks a little bit funky, is when you have that sharp edge. Does that make sense, Misty?
Yeah.
So that's why I typically have that contours in here. So I show those extra contours. Yeah, that's showing the majors. And I think right now we're not showing the minors on this one for some reason. But the idea is you have to go around all this clicking, Tyler, to give me the mountain peaks of the surrounding mountains and then real detailed where my piece of land is so I can decide where I'm going to sit that house to get a good southern exposure for my solar panels. That sound like something you'd be interested in? What we'll do is we'll see if you can make any ground on it after next week. Leave you focused for a little bit on the things that we have already discussed.
I gotcha. Try and get the website polished up a little better first.
Right. Exactly. I think that I've got something a little bit off on that fella. And what is it? It's probably this thing at intervals of 200 feet. I think maybe this is supposed to be. No? Passing through elevation of that. I'm going to figure that one out a little bit more. But we didn't ever really get into creating a topo surface. Misty's going to sort of show us some topo surface on our next meeting next week of something she's been drawing for the house across the street.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll try to answer some of her questions with the topo. I would love if you felt like you could draw a topo to try to draw a topo, try to draw a property line. I promise you could download both topographies and property lines for any kind of job to just at least play with the clicks. If you don't, you don't. It's not a big deal. This video will be there forever. So you could always go back to it at another time. Does anyone have any discussions on what we've covered? Does everybody know what we're supposed to be doing for Sunday? And I think we're probably going to do just a little short one on Sunday, maybe an hour long. That's where we wanted to talk about these families because is Mike still here? Mike's dropped off, unfortunately. One of the things that Jaffe brought up, let me see, present, stop that screen, present, share this screen. Let's go over to this one. We had a googly, not that one. Yep, that was it. Revit Family Creation. This was a website that I found where these people will actually create Revit families for you. I'd like to try to maybe get a quotation on what it would cost to have them model some families so that we know what kind of pricing we could go out in the market and charge. Okay. But remember, that was your homework on how to get Revit families. And what Chaffee showed me wasn't that one. Maybe I don't still have it up. 3D. I do not still have it up. What he's told me was Autodesk is now providing families for people using the Autodesk cloud content. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a current subscriber because it's only with the new software. So it would need someone like Mike or Ginger, who actually their company's paying for the software. I'd like to take a look at what Autodesk is doing to provide to families. I don't have a whole lot of fear that we'll crush them because they've been trying to figure out how to do this for years. And I don't imagine they got it right on their first shot, since it's taken them years to even make an attempt. So your homework was install that twin motion. And by all means, Nathan, if you're not ready to go in Revit first, install the twin motion because we're going to be learning that together. That is an awesome software. It's a lot of fun. It's a video gaming software. It gives you real adrenaline boosts. It's really cool. The idea was we were going to build something in Revit and then push it over into twin motion and start learning that twin motion probably in the beginning of October.
All right, sounds good.
So if you play video games, you'll probably get a better kick out. It uses the Unreal Engine. We can actually create content for that Unreal Engine using Revit. So who knows? Maybe that's something you use without actually ever doing BIM coordination. You'll have to sort of find if this fits you. And that still holds true for you too, Tyler, because you haven't exactly burned up the hours, and neither have you, Ginger. She's still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Still want to draw?
I do.
You're making the effort of showing up, and I appreciate you guys showing up. I just have to try to figure out when I should light a fire under your ass and when I need to leave you alone to wrap up that project you're currently working on.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big push. When
I'm
we can
trying
stop
to do
looking at
I'm
Daniel.
trying to do more of the latter and let you guys have your time, but real soon it's going to get to the point where if you don't click, we're all wasting our time.
Yeah.
Tyler, I'll cut you some slack, but I do want you working on the website. But remember, you were setting out on this to learn the Revit. So as soon as you start getting a little more time on your hands, please And then Nathan, if all you have is time on your hands, click like crazy. Believe me, I'll put you to work.
Will do.
All right. No one has anything else. I think I'm going to wrap it up here.
I just wanted to mention I probably won't make it Sunday. I've got a
Okay.
concert, and then when do you want to sit down so we can do a lot of the file share and go over more of the website stuff? I don't really know if that's going to need everybody here for that, but
Do you want to do something this weekend, or do you want to wait till after your concert and do something later next week?
we can do some Saturday.
All right. Why don't you just shoot me some text on Saturday and let me know when you're thinking? Give me like a 2-hour warning. And if I'm not digging in the dirt or doing something more fun, I'll be glad to join you and start having some input.
Okay.
I may invite Jaffe along because I told him I need some of his expertise. He's really good at surfing the internet and seeing the cutting edge stuff that's out there. And I might want him to have some input. Trust
Oh, yeah,
me,
I'd love to meet him.
I know we got a daunting task. I'm not trying to make our website like, compete with Coca-Cola or something like that. I just want it to be easy, functional, and not have to be like the way all the other websites are, where it's so damn difficult to go get a family that you just don't use it. Because that's
Right.
what ends up happening.
I just also want to make sure it's viable enough to where nobody has anything negative to say. They got a virus. It was hard to navigate. I want to make it extremely, like you said, user friendly,
Yep.
easy to use workplace.
Yep. I hear your concerns about viruses. I've never been all that concerned. Rebuilding the computer
I'm
and
sure
Google.
Nathan's probably done some similar stuff as me when we were younger. You can really, really ruin some people's day just
Oh, I know.
by Googling for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I get you.
You ever heard of a DDoS?
attack? Yep, I've heard those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really want to be hit by those, and I don't want to have intermittent service because of them.
So then
But-
your website looks like it's failing.
That's correct. That's correct. But I'm not trying to make money from my website. I'm trying to make a place where users can come to get better with the software, because that doesn't exist. I will
Yep.
tell you the one thing that I did want to bring up that I forgot about is the 24th. What is that? Next Wednesday or
5 days.
Thursday? What's that?
5 days from now? That's going to be a Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, there is the people who sell Revit are having a Ask Me Anything type webinar during the day. I'm probably going to attend it and record it so I can show you what I'm talking about. They're trying to do the same thing, and I don't think that they've got any better way to figure it out. I really want a place where, let's say Nathan actually started drawing something and he can't figure out how to put a cupola on his damn roof, and that's all he needs to do to get the damn job done. I want a place where he can come, join, we can show him how to do it, and he can get out of there having gotten it done. That doesn't really occur right now. Like I said, I'm going to join that meeting. I think it's from Microsoft, which is, they sell the Revit software. I'll be real interested how successful a process they've got going. Does that make sense? And I think that what I'll probably do is record it, and that may be something that we watch together, maybe you and I, or maybe the whole group. Because remember, if you guys want to help me get this started by the end of the year and it takes off, I want equal partners in this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the lead. I don't want to be the owner. I just want to be a contributing member of this Revit online group. I know I'm getting it started, but believe me, I don't see myself doing this forever, just constant classes. I want it to sort of be this group that works together, and I'm hoping it grows. And thank you, whoever talked to Nathan and brought him along. And don't be afraid, Ginger. I apologize. I'm going to include Nathan and the other two people on the next email for next week. We do need to, on Saturday, get me switched over to a StreamYard for Rogue.
Yep.
And a YouTube channel for Rogue. Go
Did,
ahead, Misty.
did she have a question about reference plans? I thought I heard her say she wanted to cover that.
Did you want to do that tonight, Ginger?
Well, no, we covered it before. I can go back and watch that video.
If you can't get the problem answered, please have the Revit file open next week when we get together and we're going to do this on Tuesday nights and Thursday night for the foreseeable future. Will you bring it on Tuesday night?
Okay.
If you don't get the answer from the old video.
Yes.
All right. That sounds like a winner. And I'll tell you what, if Tyler doesn't want to do on Sunday because he's got a concert, what's your Sunday look like? Would you rather just keep your time on Sunday this week, Ginger?
That's up to you. I mean, maybe I can try to use that time to draw if you want to have a weekend.
I'll tell you what, why don't you shoot me a text message or an email on Saturday? If you've had time to draw, we'll meet. If you haven't had time to draw, we'll scrub Sunday and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
All right.
Everybody download Twin Motion, and Nathan, you make that call whether you want to download the Autodesk Revit.
All right, I will.
All right. Guys, have a good night. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Hey,
Thank
Brian,
you.
one more
Sure.
thing. You see that link I just posted?
Where in the comments and private chat?
I hate to use Reddit, but I was curious. It's kind of what you're looking for and what you're wanting to create.
Oh, wait, where am I seeing the comment from? Oh, Reddit, Revit. Let's see. That thing right there?
Yep.
And what are your thoughts? Can you share your screen? Show me what you're looking at?
Yeah. Here we I know you're wanting to have a space to ask questions and share information, and that's pretty much what Reddit already does. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. There is absolutely no kind of checking files without downloading it and finding out what's inside, but you can see some of the questions these guys are talking about.
Yep.
And this is pretty much what you're wanting to host on our website, as well as save files to
Well,
download.
this is like a forum.
Yes.
And what I would see doing is, if we don't get enough interaction with people actually having questions, we'll start answering these kinds of questions on our damn website. And the difference is, instead of you actually having to wait for someone to respond, and the problem that typically happens is when I respond with words, I'm at a different level than you are. So therefore, I'm speaking another language with my answer.
Well, to what I was going to respond with is, instead of us actually building a forum on the website and praying people find it and use it, coming here, dropping in the comments, and dropping a link to our website answering that question.
That's exactly how we're going to get all the traction.
Or you could just give a short verbal answer and then put a link and say, if you want to see a video as to how this was done, go to here.
Exactly. And that's how we're going to force traffic into the website.
Well, and there's several other forums. The other one, if you did a search for Autodesk discussion group, I think it was the top one.
That's actual Autodesk.
Yep. Go to it.
You want to go there?
Oh, yeah. And then you go down to Revit. Yep, Revit products, you had it. And then you go to Revit Architecture or Revit MEP, and you'll see that there are questions in there the same way. Jaffe and I used to answer people's questions all the time. But you're exactly right. That's where we're going to then point people to our answers, and they're going to say, what the hell is this rogue thing? And that's when we're going to take off. That's where we need to get the website developed and whatnot. And you'll see, I mean, I know a lot of these people that answer these questions. I've met them in seminars. The ones who actually come up with acceptable solutions.
Hmm.
It's 2024, and this is still a thing in Revit.
Where was that?
It was one of the responses. It was one of the responses.
What's RLs?
Reference level.
Yep.
No.
And you see how that's answering with Dynamo? That would be where we would be pointing to. Jaffe uses Grasshopper and Rhino. And that is a much more powerful than Dynamo solution. Dynamo's getting better, but Dynamo is Autodesk, and these problems are from Autodesk. And you just like the Revit has the limitations. When your answer is the Dynamo a lot of times has the answers or has the
See,
same
this-
problem. Yeah. Like I said, I know most of those people. I've met some of them over the years. You get a fair amount of people in the discussion group. And what we want to do is we want to monitor several of those. But that's what my buddy Jaffe now does is he just answers forums for his company all day long.
Hmm.
Yep. See, so how do you change the pipe slope? How do you and you can see which ones when they got the green check, that means they've got a solution. So all we have to do is go through the other ones. And I promise you, with Misty and Eric and Mike and I, we can answer a fair amount of those questions.
Here you go. So this guy might not be English. No, he is.
So
I got
I
you.
haven't
Is
used
that one not
Reddit.
answered? Is that one not answered right there?
It's not marked as answered. Why is there shifting in spot elevation? Here's elements give me the right number of spot.
Yeah, because when you get to the end of your run, it goes to the center of the element, whether it's a pipe or duct, instead of the top or bottom that you're trying to get to.
Yep. Because it's always been a bug, and what you need to do is you hold it in from the end.
Share the file so we can check.
Yep. And that's so hard for people to do. But what we could do is say, come to our next session when we're live, and you don't have to share the file. You just have to show us your screen, and we'll help you click your way through it. And then having a couple people because what they want you to do, you have to do so much reverse engineering by doing this with a discussion group. Whereas if Eric and I, or Misty and I, or Misty and Eric are watching someone, they're like, oh, no, what you're doing, you can't click like that. You have to do this kind of click. And there's so many things that you can't really verbalize. So therefore, people can make all this effort to try to help you out, and all you do is get more frustrated.
Right.
That's why I think the StreamYard method is so doggone important. And if we could just then send them a link, and that's where we have to quite kind of work out that how we're going to do that communication. But yes, you're exactly right. Imagine if what you said to one of those responses is, please join us on Tuesday. I'll send you an invitation to the StreamYard. And instead of having to share the file, because remember, Revit files are big. More importantly, a lot of companies think they're proprietary information. We don't need to see the whole file, but we need to see what you're doing, and then we can help you solve that problem. So I
Yeah.
do think this is going to catch on. We just got to be careful to not open the floodgates till we're ready. But I don't want to wait too long to open the floodgates on the other hand as well. Sort of going to be a right timing. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for joining and following me through this. Do be aware there is stuff for Century coming down the pike. I want to have you guys prepared to be able to assist the job so that you can actually get some / overhead, some / production time, project time. Okay? Because once you start drawing in BIM, you'll never get away. You'll regret the day that you did that. I tried to warn you both. I'm trying to warn you too, Nathan. A BIM job ain't all that great.
I'm taking notes.
I hear you. You guys have a good night, and we're gonna probably only do Sunday if Ginger gets some time in, and Saturday you let me know, Tyler, and we'll get together.
Yeah,
All right.
that's fine. It's probably going to be a little bit if we're doing all the emails, the websites, the profiles, StreamYard, everything. It'll be a little bit, but yeah, I'm down.
All right. That
Would you like
sounds
me to
good.
join that session on Sunday as well?
What's that?
Would you like me to join that session on Sunday as well?
If Ginger, if we're gonna go over some stuff with Ginger, I'll send you an invite. From now on, you'll get an invite anytime I'm going live. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Nathan. Nice to meet you, and
Nice to meet
you
you.
guys all have a good night.
You
Bye,
as well.
guys.
Thank you.
All right, later, guys.
Bye.